G'day and welcome to Snowgum Armoury. In this series I'll be constructing the majority of elements needed to have the uniform of a Grey Warden from the Dragon Age series. Each episode will cover a different element of the uniform, from the tabard through to the weapons. In the first episode I'll be making the tabard, which is likely the most time-consuming piece. In developing the pattern, I draped a rectangle of fabric over my mannequin, which was pinned in place for a rough estimate of sizing and shape. Speaking of shapes, on the right you can see a diagram to illustrate why I chose to use certain shapes in the final design. On the left, I utilised blocky shapes, squares, and accessories, such as a thick belt, to make the character look short and stout, for a more dwarven appearance. However, in disappointing my great mining ancestors, I did want to go for the elven aesthetic. The elves tend to be tall and lanky, and standing in at only 5 foot, the illusion of great height was a fair challenge. However, it is achievable. Through the use of diamonds in the shapes, cutouts on the sides as opposed to a squared off base, I was able to create the illusion of length in my torso without compromising the length of my legs. Now, the notes that I'm taking include lengthening of the front section, but they don't actually include adding angles. While the back already had the tapered, almost Assassin's Creed style design, the front did not. This was actually changed quite late in the piece, after I'd finished most of the bias. Now, playing with the cats is a prime part of cutting out patterns, so that's what I did instead of getting footage of me cutting the patterns out. Once the base layers were cut out, it was time to attack the massive challenge of the scale mail. Now, I could have done this in much quicker and simpler ways, like getting the scales printed on some fabric, or using a fishnet as a stencil to create the illusion with spray paint over a black fabric, or I could have gone on to a place like the Ring Lord and bought a heap of scale mails and made a proper scale outfit. So what is available to me, I decided to go with vinyl. The diamond shapes themselves were a challenge. I looked at planimetric, isometric, custom diamond shapes, and in the end I came up with a kind of a custom angle for the scale. It was cutting out strips and strips and strips of fabric, then by hand trimming each row of scales to the pattern, and then taking off the point on the corner so that I had a rounded end. Once that was done, I grabbed out my sewing machine, set it up, and got ready to sew. Each row of scales was pinned in place, and then, when I sat it on the sewing machine and had the foot in the right place, I would add a layer of baking paper between the scales and the foot of the sewing machine. Now, I do this because I don't have a Teflon or a walking foot, and that makes it a little bit hard to sew on vinyl without everything going out of whack, no matter how well you pin things. After many hours and many late nights, all of the rows of scales were finally sewn in place. Now, if you're curious as to how many rows of scales ended up in the final build, please count them. I'm so curious as well. Once that arduous ordeal was over, I marked where the bias would go. Time to prepare for painting. In this case, I used 3 colours: silver, bronze, and black. These were mixed into various consistencies to create shadows, highlights, and rust, remembering that this would have been a lived-in, on-the-road kind of garment. The whole process of painting the scales happened over 4 passes: copper, shadows, sponging of straight silver to break things up, and highlights on the edges. As with all other elements of this tabard, this took a fair amount of time. Time to cut out the bias tape. Perform some magic, and appease the commander of the Grey, Sir Pounce. The bias strips were ironed into shape over a ruler I had that was similar width to what I needed, and metal so it conducted the heat. pinned onto the tabard and sewn down. Now I don't have any clips of attaching the lining, collar or front to the back, so enjoy the B-roll courtesy of my sister. I love what you can do with an extra set of hands. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. Next in the series, I'll be making a Superman style bra to hold the armour in place. If you have any questions, queries, or you use this tutorial to help you make something, please let me know over on Instagram or Twitter. I'll see you when I see you.